how you might go about doing this. Let me erase this. So let's say you are asked to design something. Say you are given you are asked to design for a particular phase margin at some unity loop gain frequency, so that you can drive a particular load capacitor and load conductance, and you are also given the DC gain and the feedback factor with which you are using. These are all given, and let's say you are asked to design this fellow. Okay. So let's see how we can go about doing it. Again, just a simple example. Again, you can kind of start with in two phases. I would say you can first try to design it at a block level. That is, you try to first determine the block values GM1, GM2 and CC, because these are the critical blocks. So let's say first I want to find these values GM1, GM2 and CC. Okay. And I have the expression for phase margin here. Okay. So tell me how you can proceed now. I have the expression for phase margin that is given to me. So here I know this fellow. I know about omega u loop, right? But I don't know anything about this term. I know beta, by the way. So I do not know anything about this ratio, and it is not like you can get information about this from any other given spec. So what would you do? But we don't know about P2, right? Yeah, but you don't know what value of P2 you want. Again, I'm saying in practice, the same problem is heavily under constraint. It is not like you will be able to take all these and exactly get values of all this. You'll not just have one solution, right? So now it looks like this is something I do not know. So what can I do? You'll have to assume and start. That's where as an engineer you decide to make reasonable choices. So would you assume this to be, how do you assume this to be? Yeah, let's say assume GM2 to be say 5 times GM1 or anything, 10 times, fine. So which means now you will know this ratio. From this what can I find? This will give me P2. Right? Again, I am starting with phase margin, but you can do with anything, right? You can take any other specification and try to assume something and move on. Again, make sure that the choices you make are reasonable. That's where the engineer in you and the designer in you comes into picture. Don't assume GM2 to be 10,000 times GM1. Then that's mathematically it's fine, but it's not practical. Okay, so now you know P2, and what is P2 approximately? GM2 by CL roughly. I know now the value of P2. I know CL. Now I can find GM2. So this gives me GM2 straight away. And once I know GM2, what I can find immediately? GM1, because you assume GM1 to be something times GM2. So this also gives you, I mean, the way I assumed is GM1 is GM2 by 5. So essentially I know GM2, I know what is 5, so I can find GM1. So lastly, I just have to find the compensation capacitance value. So which, I mean, what can I do for finding that? Yeah, I have been given with omega u loop, that is beta times GM1 by CC. So let me write that. I know omega u loop. So again, this is approximately beta times GM1 by CC. I know this one. I know beta and GM. I can find CC. So this is also done. Right. So again, you don't have to necessarily start with this phase margin. I just took it as a starting point. We can even start with omega u loop, assume something for GM1 or assume something for CC and find GM1. The point is you'll have to start with some assumption and proceed, otherwise you cannot solve. Yeah, but the idea is at a block level you don't know what G1 is. G1 is the GDS of the transistor, right? See, at a block level what I care is GM1, GM2 and CC. Now we can start to see how we can design that in transistors. The moment you include transistor level details is where G1 comes in, right? Yeah, of course. See, as of now we used only these three information, right? Now G1 comes to, when you design for a particular DC gain is when the conductances start to come in. But at a block level, that's something that you cannot decide. You can decide later when you design with transistors. Yeah, maybe you can do that also. Let's say we try to do a transistor. Again, we have not looked at the transistor level detail, but I'm sure you can visualize things now. So I have this two-stage OTA. Where did it go? First stage is taking two inputs, giving one output. What is the simplest structure that can do that? The 5-transistor OTA can do this. Second stage takes in one input, one output. What is that? Common source. So at least now I know GM1 and GM2. GM1 will be the transconductance of the differential pair in your 5-transistor OTA. GM2 will be the transconductance of the common source amplifier, common source NMOS transistor. So with that, let's at least try to design those transistors and see how it will be. So okay, what I'm getting at is now I know for, let us say, second stage I know what is GM2, and I know this GM2 is essentially the transconductance of the MOS transistor used in the second stage. This is something I know. Based on this, let's see how we can design the bias current and sizes. Okay. So again, remember you would have characterized the transistors and generated that lookup table. So now I know GM. Is there any parameter of any lookup table parameter that can be known from the given specifications? The lookup table you would have generated GM by GDS, GM by ID, blah blah blah, right? Can you get information on any of those parameters from the given specs? What is the DC gain? DC gain is the first stage gain and second stage gain. Let us say you are given a gain of 1000. Again, you can split the gain between the two stages. So what might be a reasonable gain you can assume for second stage? Let's say 10, reasonable. So that will tell you the GM by GDS of the transistor, correct? So I will say now we can maybe fix, I'll erase this, not needed. Maybe you can start by fixing the GM by GDS of the second stage, right? Now I know GM by GDS. I need to find the, let us say, the bias current ID. Which of those lookup table parameters I can look at now? GM by ID. So you try to plot the following. You plot GM by GDS, let us say, versus GM by ID for different values of length, right? And then you choose some particular length, and for that particular length you see that for this GM by GDS what is the required GM by ID you get. Now we know the value of GM by ID, you know the value of GM, which means I know what is the bias current required. So that fixes the bias current. And you have also chosen the length, right? You started by assuming some length, so length is also done. Now I have to find the width. Which parameter now I can look at? No, I have the lookup table parameters. So which parameter I can look at? ID by W. So I need to look at ID by W. So maybe I can plot, let us say, GM by ID versus ID by W for the chosen length. That is, let us say, some L2. You know this value, you can find this value. And I know the drain current. From there I can fix the width. See again, remember that it is not necessary that I have to only plot GM by ID versus this, right? I can also plot GM by GDS versus ID by W also. Remember that the whole point is we have generated a lookup table where for a particular length and a particular operating point VGS, we have all these values, GM by GDS, GM by ID, blah blah blah. Now you are trying to see for this particular length, I have chosen GM by GDS. I want to find out what are the other parameters. Correct? Now searching into this lookup table, you are doing it by plotting parameters. Basically, let us say I want to find what is the required ID by W in this lookup table. Now, instead of searching into this lookup table, you are doing a proxy method by plotting one with respect to the other. So you can also plot GM by GDS versus ID by W, and for that GM by GDS, you can find what is ID by W. So just want to make sure that you understand that it is not as though all the parameters are independent. The moment you fix the length and one parameter, everything else is fixed. Okay. You are trying to find, if I choose one parameter and the length, what are the other parameters? That's the whole idea. And a roundabout way of doing that is, plotting one with respect to the other and finding what is the value. Yeah, but again, this way you can fix this. Same thing you can do for the first stage also. If you know GM, you can do these things. But one thing to be wary of is the following. See, after you design it, again, make sure that you find what is the VGS required for this and ensure it is in saturation, right? That is important. The bias point should be perfect. Okay. If you find that, let us say, the VGS is not very good for voltages to be good, you can maybe start by fixing VGS. Just like how I started with a particular GM by GDS, you can also, let us say, start by fixing what is VGS. Right? If you find that after you do this, the VGS is not sufficient, maybe you can do the other way also. I can start with the given VGS. The moment I have what is VGS and what is the length, that will in turn fix GM by GDS. Correct? Remember here, these two, once you fix, everything else is fixed. No, for a particular length and a particular VGS, everything else is fixed. See, these are the parameters, right? And these are the independent points, the operating point and the length. They are the two parameters that you are sweeping. For these two, for different operating points and different lengths, you save all the values. So the moment you fix two of them in this, everything else is fixed. The moment you fix length and one of the parameters here, everything else is fixed. Because everything here is dependent on each other. Okay. Other thing also to be wary of is, see, in your expressions you would have assumed P2 to be this, right? This is true if C1 is smaller than CC, correct? And if you look at C1, C1 is essentially the gate parasitic capacitance of the second stage, because this will be some MOS transistor, right? The gate capacitance of that will be the C1. Okay, so you also have to make sure that is fine, and that is the CGG capacitance. So which lookup table parameter gives you information about CGG? If you remember, we did GM by CGG, right? So it is also better to check GM by CGG and ensure C1 is smaller than CC, correct? And once again, if you find this is not happening for your design example, you can do the following. You can start with assuming some C1, correct? Once again, if you assume C1, that is CGG is assumed, you know the value of GM. GM by CGG is now fixed. So once again, you can maybe start, from here. This will start by fixing GM by CGG, right? So that way you can use the exact expression for your second pole, because you know the value of C1 also. This might be required because sometimes the compensation capacitance might not be really large. If you want to have very high bandwidth, you want smaller capacitances. So which means you will not be able to put larger CC. So C1 might be comparable. In that case, you have to start with assuming some CGG And if you know GM by CGG is known, correct? And the moment you fix a particular length and GM by CGG, everything else in the lookup table is frozen. And you can look at those parameters and decide. Hopefully you get some idea. Okay. So again, moment you start to do design, you will get a feel for it, right? So I just want to do one last thing and wrap up today. So let us say now we have designed for something, right? These parameters. Let us say in your company, the manager then comes up, says that, hey, now I want to change my specifications. I want to have a larger CL, but I want to keep the rest of the parameters same. So tell me, if CL increases, what changes? Look at the expressions. What changes immediately? Second pole moves to a lower frequency. Is that good or bad? Because you want first order behavior till omega u loop. If second pole starts to kick in earlier, that's lost. So what should be the countermeasure you should do? Yeah, I should increase P2. So which means I should go and increase GM2. Correct? And remember, if I increase GM2, I don't want to change the operating points earlier, right? So which means I want to increase GM, but I want to keep GM by ID same, ID by W same. So which means if I increase GM, I also have to correspondingly increase ID. So which means if I increase ID, I have to increase W. So simplest thing is to, let us say you have one transistor. If you want to double the GM, you put another transistor in parallel. That will keep the same VGS operating point voltage. Current will double, GM will double. And similarly, let us say you find that you want to now drive a smaller RL, which means the load conductance increases. If GL increases, what changes here? What can you say about the gain? DC gain increases or reduces? To counter this, what should you do again? I have to increase GM2. That's the only way. So once again, you have to increase GM2. So which means you have to put again multiple transistors in parallel, and that will in turn consume more power, right? And again, now you see that anytime you want to, anytime you have a case where the load becomes difficult to drive, seems like the only solution is to go and increase the power in your second stage. So does it make sense that you are changing only the second stage for driving load? Yes. If so, yes. Why?
Because the first stage parameters are not affected. The first pole is.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, logically, does it make sense that I'm only changing the second stage for changing anything with respect to the load?
That's what we put the second stage.
Exactly. As you're saying, the reason for having a second stage is to drive a resistive load. So anytime the load becomes difficult to drive, it makes sense that you go and burn more and more power in your second stage. Okay. And in general also, you'll find that this notion of increasing power will kind of help you solve half the problems. That just like in Avengers, Thanos snapped the finger, half the problems disappeared. Even here, if you actually go and increase power, half the problems kind of disappear typically. But just like how in that movie, this was not the most optimal solution. In circuit design also, that is not the optimal solution, because if you are a smart analog designer, you will come up with new better techniques to counter this. Okay. But typically, you will find that brute force solution for a lot of problems is to go and burn more and more power. That will actually help you solve a lot of problems. Okay. So hopefully you got some idea as to how you can design things in practice using the lookup table. So just think about it, and if you start designing more and more, you will get the hang of it.
If we increase GL, we can decrease G1 also, right?
Yeah, you can decrease G1, but how will you decrease G1 alone without affecting the operating point parameters? You can do that, but again, if you want to decrease G1, let's actually stop it and we can discuss.